What's up, everyone? Thank you so much for spending some of your time with me today on this channel. Today, we are going to be talking about the fascinating but tragic legacy of Finland's children of Bodom, as well as the story of Alexi and Laiho. So please stay tuned, and I hope you all will enjoy this video. Please check out the links in the description for playlists, as well as contact information, as well as donation links if you all want to see more videos like this. So my experience or my story with Children of Bodom is kind of interesting, I guess, because I was kind of a late bloomer to Children of Bodom. I think after Alexia Laiho died, I definitely started listening to them a lot more. But what's interesting was way back in high school, around 2005, me and my friends were actually on our way to see Children of Bodom and Slayer and Lamb of God, of course, at the Unholy Alliance tour in Albany, New York. But we were stuck in traffic, so we basically missed the entire Children of Bodom, concert, or the entire set. They were opening for Lamb of God, I think. And then there was another band before Children of Bodom. But unfortunately, we missed the live show. And the only reason I mention this is because I do believe that if I had seen Children of Bodom play live that day, I would have been much more of a fan of them. I definitely sort of just kind of, maybe I thought they were overrated at the time, or I wasn't really into the European metal as much as I was, the American bands when I was in high school. So it took me a long time to sort of get into the international metal scene. I was more of just a Slayer, Metallica, Lamb of God kind of guy for the longest time until, I got older and I started appreciating the European metal, because European metal is really where it's at. They really make the best metal bands. But in recent times, since Alexi Laiho's death, as well as to prepare for this video, I definitely spent a lot of time with the entire Children of Bodom discography, just trying to absorb the different styles that they were able to create on their albums. They were definitely one of the most prolific metal bands from Finland. So let's, get into the story of Children of Bodom. Also talking about Alexia Laiho as well. He is sort of, he's the leader, right, of Children of Bodom. Obviously, Children of Bodom had a lot of wonderful musicians, a lot of talented gentlemen that played in the band throughout the years. But the story of Children of Bodom, if there was no Alexia Laiho, there would be no Children of Bodom. So we will definitely be discussing Alexia Laiho in detail as much as we possibly can. And so the story of Children of Bodom actually starts all the way back from 1993. Alexia Laiho formed a band known as In Earthed. Haven't really listened to too much of them, but it was basically sort of a less advanced version of Children of Bodom, right? And they actually signed to a Belgium record label that basically screwed them over. Didn't really give them any promotion. Did not really, help to forward the In Earthed slash Children of Bodom agenda, right? They, were having trouble finding live shows, so on and so forth. But Alexia Laiho's parents were very, very supportive of, his desire and his love of playing guitar. And he actually was able to drop out of high school to focus on guitar full time. I know, crazy, right? I wish I could have done that. I probably would have been still in a metal band to this day. In Earth played around Finland and some other places around Europe. But after a while, they decided, hey, we need to ditch this record label. And they actually changed over to Spine Farm from, the Finnish record label, who, signed Nightwish, as well as, a lot of other heavy metal bands that are well known to us. And around this time, In Earthed or Alexia Laiho decided to just change the name of the band, right? So they went with Children of Bodom. And for the people that are asking, what does that name mean, Children of Bodom? It's basically a reference to a string of murders that happened at Lake Bodom in Finland. Some teenagers were murdered by some deranged serial killer, something to that effect. I'm not an expert on that case. But what a great, interesting, crazy topic, or a crazy name for a metal band. And also, since we're going to be talking about the music of Children of Bodom, I do think it's important to take the time to read and try to absorb Alexia Laiho's lyrics, right? I do believe he was primarily the primary, the main, lyricist, I should say. And, a name like Children of Bodom, you might not know what to expect. You might just think it's all gory lyrics and stuff like that. But Alexia Laiho actually wrote a lot of really beautifully profound spiritual lyrics about addiction, about depression, which Alexi Laiho suffered from both of those travesties that we will discuss further in this video. So around the time of 1996 to 97, Children of Bodom becomes a thing, and they release their first debut album called Something Wild with Spine Farm. They're really enjoying the promotion and the success that Spine Farm is able to give them. So basically from here on out, Children of Bodom increases in popularity. And just sort of takes over the underground metal scene, and not long after they will sort of make their mark on the international metal scene. And Children of Bodom, let me know in the comment sections if anyone has seen them play live, but they toured relentlessly, constant touring, constant concerts, right? Just a little bit about Alexi Laiho. Alexi Laiho was born in Espoo, Finland. His full name is Markku Aula Alexi Laiho. Might not be a perfect pronunciation, but I'm trying. And Alexi Laiho, actually, his first instrument was actually the violin. He was into classical music. He was into operas and stuff like that, which I think is really interesting. And like we said before, he had the full support of his family to pursue his career in heavy metal. I do think this is important to mention, although it's depressing. Around 1997, Alexi Laiho did attempt a suicide by taking pills and drinking whiskey, something to that effect. We don't know exactly the exact mental state of Alexi Laiho, right? Although he was pretty open and honest about his struggles with depression and alcoholism and sadness and being addicted to touring, also not only alcohol. So what led to that exact point in Alexi's life in the late 90s where he decided to kill himself, I thought it was important to mention because this was sort of the beginning of Children of Bodom. And at the same time that Children of Bodom was basically becoming an international success, Alexi Laiho was not really doing so well and felt the need to clock out, which is really unfortunate. And he basically had everything going for him at this time, as well as the band itself. So their first album, I'm not going to talk too much about the individual albums. I will sort of recommend some songs to you guys. Obviously, we have Living Deadbeat. That's a fantastic song. We have songs like Under Grass and Clover, a fantastic song from one of their later albums. We have, Are You Dead Yet? We have, I was listening to their newest album last night, which is probably the one I haven't had a chance to absorb 100% yet, but just all over the place. Great songs, great riffs. Their albums are rather long, so there's a lot of material to attempt to listen to and attempt to cover with the legacy of Children of Bodom. But I would basically start with the album Are You Dead Yet? It just has the really great thrashy, heavy symphonic sound that they're known for. They didn't just stick to that sound. They did, like we said previously, the band evolved. They had more of sort of a neoclassical sort of thrashy influence in the beginning with their debut album and some of the albums after that. And then they sort of progressively moved into even heavier riffs, but heavier songs, heavier song structures, but at the same time, their riffs got heavier. The song or the riffs got catchier, I should say. The songwriting was really profound and really catchy and just easy to get into. I think Children of Bodom is a good sort of entry metal band for a non-metalhead, or maybe just like a metalhead that's used to Metallica or something. So if you're looking for something really European, with great musicianship, with really great vocals, definitely check out Children of Bodom. I will say that it is hard to understand Alexi Laiho's vocals for some reason, compared to some of the other metal bands that have guttural vocals. I don't know why. I think it's just because it's so screechy, and maybe on top of that, Alexi Laiho's accent, perhaps Finnish accent, maybe is hindering the delivery of the English. I don't believe they've done any songs in Finnish, but anyway. So in the late 90s, we had the unfortunate attempted suicide, suicide attempt by Alexi Laiho. So now we're and also, and I'm not sure if this was a contributing factor, but everybody knows about Alexi Laiho's struggles with alcohol, and he started to drink rather heavily during this time. Like most young heavy metal bands, they're on the road, they start raging, they start drinking, and that sort of thing. And Alexi Laiho basically just really loved alcohol. He was quoted as saying, one of his quotes is, "Alcohol makes me happy and is one of my best friends," something to that effect. So I definitely know what he's talking about there. But I do think Alexi Laiho unfortunately turned up the dials way too much on his drinking, or was not able to turn down the dials rather. And basically, his over the years of touring, by the time we get to 2008, we're jumping around a little bit here, but Alexi Laiho was becoming physically dependent on alcohol. And he was actually suffering from stomach ulcers, and he was vomiting blood. And I remember back in the day, I was reading a heavy metal magazine. It might have been Revolver or one of those cool old school heavy metal magazines, but he was talking about the fact that after a certain amount of months and weeks or years of drinking rather on the road, your body gets so, your stomach in particular cannot handle any more alcohol, but if you drink Pepto-Bismol, you can still manage to get drunk. And I just remember reading this and just thinking, this is really crazy. I mean, that sounds like a really far-fetched route to go just to get drunk or to get tipsy. But unfortunately, Alexi Laiho was a victim of alcoholism. Now, I do think his drinking definitely was more like on sort of that took place on the road, and then maybe when he came back he would sort of taper off a little while, but that whole scenario actually switches in the later career of Alexi Laiho and Children of Bodom, because roughly around 2008, while Children of Bodom and Alexi Laiho were on tour with Slipknot, Alexi Laiho had to go to the hospital, like I said, for the vomiting blood, stomach ulcers. He had a really heavy night of drinking and partying. It says right here, after a night of heavy drinking, Laiho began vomiting blood on and off stage and was taken to the hospital with stomach ulcers. Now, basically, these are all my own notes from all my research. I did not copy and paste anything, but these are facts, so you guys can rely on most of them. So we can already see that from the get-go, Alexi Laiho and Children of Bodom are off to a very, very successful start, but it's also a rough start. We had the unfortunate attempted suicide of Alexi Laiho. We have Alexi Laiho's drinking binges, his drinking problems. Now, Alexi Laiho was not the only drinker in Children of Bodom, right? I mean, a lot of their early music videos is basically just them in the back of the tour bus chugging alcohol and acting goofy. And so that's what's interesting about Children of Bodom, despite their heavy music and despite their very intricate and profound and dark lyrical quality, they had a sort of a humorous aspect to not only their performances, but the way that they made their music videos, the way that they did interviews. They weren't just like a bunch of, they weren't like a, like a black metal musician that's like, 24-hour Satanism, holding a candle and just like a stick in the mud. They were quite the opposite. They were like just sort of they almost had a glam aspect to sort of the way that they presented themselves. And like I said, they didn't take themselves too seriously, which I think is really interesting. So as a result of this, really bad problem during the Slipknot tour around 2008, Laiho did begin recovering, and he remained sober while on the road for the next 5 to 6 years, roughly, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a little bit less. But Alexi Laiho did begin to reevaluate his relationship with alcohol, and basically decided to not drink while he was on the road anymore. He might have had a couple of beers or maybe 1 or 2 cocktails once in a while, but he could not stand to get on stage and be sick and be vomiting and be hungover anymore. So he did make the wise decision to quit drinking while on the road. He went dry. That way he could perform to the best of his ability. And Children of Bodom was doing really, really well during this time. We had the album Are You Dead Yet? That I think roughly came out around 2003 or 2004, around the time of where I was supposed to see them on the Unholy Alliance tour. And then they had a whole slew of albums. I haven't memorized all the titles of the albums yet. Maybe we'll pull them up at the end and talk a little bit about them, because I do think the albums are interesting. But unfortunately, this predicament caused Alexi Laiho to, obviously it was good that he wasn't drinking on the road, right? But when he got home, he would kind of start raging, at least towards the later part of this. I think his initial sort of his initial plan was to not drink at all. Maybe he was trying to quit completely, but it just didn't really quite work. And what a lot of metal bands will do is they'll actually do the opposite. They will not drink while they're at home with their families or at work or whatever, and then once they're on tour, then they start drinking. But that's a pretty bad idea too, because I feel like my head is crooked here. It's bugging me. We're just going to go with it. Obviously, because you can't perform very well if you're hungover or you're drunk and yada yada. So fast forwarding a little bit, Laiho, there's speculation from his band members that Alexi Laiho never really actually quit drinking. Let's pull up a picture for you guys so we can have some imagery. I do apologize. I meant to put this in earlier. So there's speculation that Alexi Laiho actually never really gave up drinking, and that seems to pretty much make sense. It seems to be true. There were periods where he went long stretches with prolonged sobriety, where he was, not on the bottle, especially on tour. But when he would get home, he would start to hang out at the bar or whatever, and start drinking with his friends. And also Alexi Laiho's relationship with alcohol was not just for the sake of partying and going to bars and all that stuff. He used alcohol as a creative mechanism to write some of the wonderful songs that Children of Bodom was able to write. And as a creative person, I relate to that quite well. Sometimes, or quite often actually, alcohol does function as a muse, a very, very powerful inspiration and muse. And you can use it as a tool to sort of loosen up and write good songs, write good lyrics, write good poems, or whatever it is that you're working on creatively. But after a while, obviously, alcohol takes its toll. And this is just sort of a philosophical thing about drinking, and that I'm going to kind of go into here for a second. But, every drinker knows that despite the physical problem it's causing you, or even social problems, or whatever punishments the alcohol is giving you, there's something about drinking that makes you continue to do it, for better or worse. I'm not going to sit here and give people a 12-step program or anything like that. It's not the purpose of that, but I just wanted to sort of talk about the duality of drinking. Yes, it makes you creative. Yes, it makes you feel good, but it is one of the worst drugs to come down from, or to try to withdraw from, God forbid, if you're addicted to it. Now, I will say that Alexi Laiho obviously went beyond addiction, or he went really, really far into the deep end of addiction. And this became obviously it wasn't just a fun party thing anymore, like he said. It became something that consumed him, and that's why he was trying to get rid of it. But he was not that he wasn't taking it seriously, but he didn't realize that he could not drink anymore at all. Basically, his body was giving up on him. Obviously was telling him, like, hey, Alexia, let's not, don't put any more alcohol in my stomach, because I'm just, going to bleed and I'm going to throw up. And then we'll sort of get into what happened to Alexi Laiho later on. But we do have some drama in the Children of Bodom Alexi Laiho camp that comes up roughly around sort of the late period of the 2000s, like the 2015 to 2019, right? There was some drama between the members of Children of Bodom. One of the guitarists left on, I think, their last album, their most recent album, I guess you could say. But Laiho kept this regimen of sober touring for quite some time, like we said, but eventually began raging on the road again, unfortunately. And by the time we get to 2019, we see Bodom's record label pressuring Alexi Laiho, as well as the band, to pressure Alexi Laiho, or to get Alexi into rehab, to get him to stop drinking. His drinking was just getting really bad again, right? We don't know exactly what took place. Which is, one of the mysteries, but obviously there was a lot of drinking going on, maybe perhaps some other forms of addiction. So they pressured him to get rehab. And Alexi Laiho, I'm not sure exactly what went down with that, but I will say that Alexi Laiho felt betrayed by the band members, as well as sort of the record label sort of trying to, parent him. They were sort of overstepping their boundaries, right? But they were trying to save his life. Not only did Alexi Laiho feel betrayed, but, the band, Children of Bodom, actually felt betrayed by Alexi Laiho because he sort of failed to keep his word, and one of the quotes from the band members was that we lost our trust, or he broke our trust. Alexi Laiho broke the trust within the band, and on top of that, Alexi Laiho threatened to fire the band members and as well as his management, and wanted to basically sort of start running the Children of Bodom show, with him as the captain, or as far as royalties and things of that nature. And he basically tried to register the name Children of Bodom under his own name. Now, Children of Bodom not prior, but like during their entire trajectory of their career, the whole Children of Bodom enterprise was under a LLC, which is some type of business distribution management something or another. I'm not sure exactly what LLC means, but I'm assuming that it was something where they were all the members were shareholders in the band, right? And they all got royalties. They all got a little cut from playing live. They all got some album cuts from the album sales, promotional deals, stuff like that. But at some point or another, Alexi Laiho wanted to have more creative control as well as business, economic, merchandise or ticket sales or promotional control too, right? It kind of makes sense. He's the sole songwriter. I'm sure the other band members contributed it quite a lot too. My chair is a little too tall here. That's why I keep bumping up and down. So we're going to lower it just a wee bit. This whole struggle between the band, Alexi Laiho, and the other band members of Children of Bodom was never fully resolved, but they were able to continue. They were actually considering disbanding around 2017 to 18, but they managed to hang on a little bit longer. Like I said, they had their final album, which I think was released in 2019, I want to say. But unfortunately, with the release of their final album, Children of Bodom disbanded, and basically a lot of shit went down, right? But Children of Bodom, or Alexi Laiho, basically formed another project called Bodom After Midnight, which was named after one of the old school Children of Bodom songs. And Alexi Laiho collaborated and sort of experimented with a lot of other different bands and musicians throughout his career. But something sad and kind of ominous and sinister took place around this time, around the 2018 to 19, maybe a little bit earlier than that. I forgot exactly what date they said in the interview, but he was basically in a room with his band members. Alexi Laiho was in the room with the Children of Bodom guys, and a bunch of them left the room, and it was basically just him and I think the keyboard player. His name is escaping me, but Alexi Laiho basically said, from now on, I'm going to drink until I die. So I do think that quote was worth mentioning, and it's always kind of haunted me because we don't know exactly what took place, why Alexi Laiho decided to drink himself into oblivion, drink himself to death. He was suffering from diabetes, from years of drinking, degenerative destruction to his pancreas tissue as well as his liver. So you guys can read the cause of death on Google. It's quite shocking. And this is a young picture of Alexi Laiho, and I wanted to celebrate Alexi Laiho's youth. I wanted to celebrate his talent. I didn't want to show one of the later pictures of him just because of how, old he looked. He definitely, wore himself out. And I think it's really, really tragic. And that's kind of where we come to the end of this story. There's a couple other things we're going to discuss. So what happened with that? Was it an emotional thing he was going through? Did he realize that he could not stop drinking, so he just wanted to continue to drink and enjoy himself as much as he possibly could because he knew he couldn't beat the addiction? Or was there something else in his personal life that we don't know about? His personal life was I guess you could say fairly open to the fans or to the public or to the media, but within reason. He talked about his addiction, he talked about his depression, he talked about what it's like living in Finland where it becomes winter like 24 hours a day for a couple of months out of the year, and it just drives you crazy. But as far as what actually made Alexi Laiho tick, that's anyone's guess. He seems like he grew up with a good, loving relationship with his family, but is there something else there, some type of abuse, some type of trauma that caused Alexi Laiho to not only start drinking in the first place, right? I mean, there's a lot of different reasons people start drinking, but what actually just made Alexi Laiho decide to kill himself with alcohol? That's really the question that we'll leave the viewers with here. Prior to that, we're jumping around a little bit again, but when Alexi Laiho threatened to kick out the management and threatened to fire all of his band members, he basically apologized. He sent out an email or talked to him or something and basically said, that was just my addiction talking. I apologize. I want to make things right. But having said that, there still was sort of a creative struggle within the Children of Bodom camp. And if you watch some of the documentaries of their recording, some of their later albums, you'll see that Alexi Laiho has decided to stay at the practice space with the band members, but he has to go out and buy his own separate bed because he's basically like, I'm too fucked up and old to be sleeping on a couch in the rehearsal space. It was just really funny. He was just kind of trolling, but it was true, and he's driving in this car and he looks like a little old man. Like, he's adorable and he's talented, but it's just sad to see the state of what happened to him. It's almost just like he shrunk. Was a really small dude in general, from what I'm assuming. He looks kind of small. He looks kind of short. He looks kind of petite, I guess you could say, for a man. But he just did not radiate that strength, and he still had charisma, but he looked like a shell of himself. If you look up with the later pictures of Alexi Laiho, you'll understand what I'm talking about. But like we said, ultimately Children of Bodom decided to disband around 2019 due to not only creative differences, but to Alexi Laiho's increasing unwillingness to get help. And that's kind of where we'll leave this video, is that's what's really sad about the story of Alexi Laiho, is that he refused help towards the end. And we don't really know why that is. Slightly after the death of Alexi Laiho on December 29th, 2020, a couple of days after Christmas, what a day to die. I guess a couple of days after Yuletide for the European people that are maybe not so big a fan of Christmas. We'll say Yuletide just out of respect. And after Alexi Laiho died, his family, his sister, was trying to keep the cause of death kind of under wraps, right? They didn't really want people knowing. Everybody kind of assumed it was liver failure or overdose of some kind or alcoholism. It was pretty clear what Alexi Laiho was unfortunately doing to himself. But we do have some drama with the after the death of Alexi Laiho, because his former fiance, or his former wife, I should say, Kimberly Gross, sort of released his cause of death as alcohol-induced degeneration of the liver and problems with his pancreas. And his family members weren't too keen on the idea of everybody knowing. I'm not really sure why they were trying to keep his death a secret. Everybody knew his death was alcohol related. Maybe some people assumed it was an overdose, or maybe they thought he wasn't literally drinking up until the point that he died, but maybe he died of complications from all the years of prior drinking. But so there was, some back and forth between Alexi Laiho's family and Kimberly Gross, who, felt that in her mind it was her obligation to the fans to let them know what happened to Alexi Laiho. And I think she did the right thing, despite all the backlash that she got about releasing the cause of death of Alexi Laiho. And after I kind of just finished the whole story of Children of Bodom, Alexi Laiho, I realized that this video was much more about much more about Alexi than it was Children of Bodom. Now, there was probably some details about the band and maybe more commentary on their actual music or their actual style or their actual albums that we could maybe discuss at a later time. But I think this was a good introduction for those of you who are not familiar with Children of Bodom. Please check them out. You will not be disappointed. Children of Bodom has a really beautiful way of giving you feelings of strength and power, but also allowing you to feel your emotions. It's not just full-on aggression like Slayer or something like that. It's much more emotionally visceral, much more profound, and just the imagery with the Grim Reaper. And I do think there's something kind of creepy about the whole legacy of Children of Bodom and ultimately what happened to Alexi Laiho. This whole thing, this whole entity of the Grim Reaper and Children of Bodom and all these, emotional dark lyrics that Alexi was writing, it sort of became him. It's like the guy from Taxi Driver says, a man becomes his job, becomes what he is, and that's kind of what happened to Alexi Laiho. This whole theme of the Grim Reaper, you know, Alexi Laiho was basically a Grim Reaper himself by the time he died from drinking himself to death. And so please let me know in the comment sections if you're a fan of Children of Bodom, what do you think about heavy metal stars drinking themselves to death? What would drive somebody to do that? It's so tragic, it's so sad, and it's so scary to think that you know, not only drinking can do that to you, but just, you know, getting addicted to any drug or getting addicted to touring. You know, Alexi Laiho talked about, he wrote some songs, in fact, about what it was like to be on tour, and you just sort of get addicted to it, but you sort of lose your sense of self, you lose your sense of reality. So that was the very, very long-winded and all over the place, mind you, trajectory, or the whole tale of Children of Bodom and Alexi Laiho. It's definitely a tragic story in the metal world. We lost we lost a very talented heavy metal star in 2020 when we lost Alexi Laiho. And I will say that I do think the death of Alexi Laiho affected a lot of other people in the metal community, particularly Marco Hietala, for example. Maybe something about Alexi Laiho's death just, I don't know, was a wake-up call to other musicians to, you know, stop touring as much, or you know, get out of this beast that is the music industry. And you know, so anyway, rest in peace, Alexi Laiho. He's left us a lot of really, really great heavy metal music to bang our heads to. So I hope you guys will be encouraged to do that. Please leave your thoughts and comments and speculations in the comment sections if anybody has any idea of maybe a little bit more of the background of what happened to Alexi Laiho. And that's kind of the title of this video: what happened to Children of Bodom, or what happened to Alexi Laiho. That's kind of anyone's guess. Obviously, we know he drank himself to death. He was a little bit depressed. He had some problems, you know, with his band. He had some maybe relationship problems. But what drove this extremely talented, famous musician to decide that he no longer wanted to live and he wanted to drink himself to death? What a bad way to go. So thank you so much for watching this video, guys, and we will see you guys in the next one.